him as a weapon. Don't even get me started on the historical misrepresentations and inaccuracies that are fluent throughout this entire show. I understand that this is fiction, and at this point I'm trying to insert logic into a kid's anime series, but here the flaws seem all the more glaring because the entire premise of the show is centered around history, the preservation of history, and it takes place several centuries in the future. In fact, it's stated in several episodes that the time shifters, despite their presence not being remembered, were influential in making key events in history actually happen. So wait, the shifters need to go back into the past to ensure that history is unchanged in the future, and then they need to go back into the future so that they don't alter history anymore. Do you know what this is doing? They've created a time paradox! Alright, I'm done harping about the plot and the inconsistencies and plot holes and whatnot. Let's talk about something that's actually fairly decent in this anime, and that is the characters. While most of them are relatively static and don't change a whole lot through the entire show's run, there are small, subtle changes, and they are entertaining enough as they are to, well, draw you back in without being so ungodly annoying it makes you want to hurl your TV across the room. Flint, being the main character, is actually one of the most entertaining characters here, even if his voice can get a little annoying sometimes. This is mostly due to his lack of intelligence, and even though he takes to technology much quicker than I would expect a prehistoric boy his age to do, he still remains a very naive and big-hearted character, ever optimistic and always willing to do the right thing, which I think has a lot of charm. And again, he doesn't really change much, but he's still a very interesting and energetic character.
Can I write it again? Because it was a blast.
No!
Tony and Sarah are also pretty competent characters, the highlight of their appearance on the show being their sibling squabbles, but they were mainly put in the show so that it could have some intelligence. As has been stated, Flint isn't exactly the brightest bulb of the bunch, and so they were meant to be the brains to his brawn.
Uncover a mystery. What if we find a fossil that's been buried for hundreds and thousands of years?
It'll probably stink.
No, it won't.
The rest of the good guy characters in the show are pretty bland and only really serve as exposition generators to let us know where Flint will be going and what he will be doing and so on and so forth. And, well, the time shifters and historical figures themselves are okay, but they only really appear for the episode that they're featured in, and after that we don't really hear a whole lot from them. We don't hear anything from the historical figures, and the time shifters, while they do appear occasionally, don't really have a very big impact throughout the rest of the series, except for the episode where they're introduced in. Now the villain, on the other hand, Petrofina, she's just awesome. Petrofina has to be one of the most over-the-top villainesses ever. While she does run the gamut from completely stupid and petty to relatively intelligent throughout the entire series, there's no doubt that she is a match for Flint and the other time detectives, and she's also one of the more interesting characters personality-wise, even if she can be a little hard-headed, though I think a lot of her over-the-topness comes from the fact that her voice actress is completely crazy too. Now, as you probably noticed from some of the clips that I've been using, the dub is not the best. It's not terrible by any means, the roles are filled competently enough, but it does run the full gamut from extremely Shakespearean in tone to ungodly annoying. Flint and Petrofina actually seem to flip-flop between the two quite often. Other characters, like Tony and Sarah, they are kind of one note when it comes to their voices. They don't really reach any sort of range changes throughout the entire show. Again, they're not terrible voices, they just don't change very often, even in extremely different circumstances. In terms of the background music, however, I can honestly say that I'm kind of surprised by this. You see, Saban seems to have this library of background music that they like to recycle from show to show. Some of the background music in this show I remember hearing in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Digimon. Other than that, though, I don't really find a lot of the tracks in this show very memorable, except for that friggin' opening. This opening is extremely silly and doesn't really tell us a whole lot about the show, but damn it, it is just so jazzy, it is awesome. The beat is really catchy and just makes you want to get up and start dancing, and the little dance that the characters do during it is just adorable. Add to it the fact that they have that silly karaoke bouncing head thing going on. Even though the lyrics are clearly so simple anybody could memorize them the first time they heard this song, and you actually have something that's really worth watching and listening to over and over again.
Crossing the time barrier to save the world!
Unfortunately, I've never heard the actual ending theme to this series. See, I grew up with the Fox Kids version, and that's also the version that's included on my DVDs. So instead of an actual ending theme, what we get is basically a clip show from the series, followed by the credits and an instrumental version of, well, the opening theme, as if it didn't have enough instrumentation already. In terms of animation, the series is also pretty decent for the time that it was made. You have to keep in mind this was made before the advent of computers in animation. Well, there were computers, but they weren't mainstays. A majority of this series is done in hand-drawn cells, which I actually prefer. There is a sort of nostalgia to that, actually. Anyway, like I said, the animation is decent, though at times you can definitely tell that they were scrimping on the animation budget. There's quite a bit of stock footage, and every now and then you will see a repeated frame or not a whole lot of movement. The action scenes are pulled off decently enough, though. Oh, and then there's this 30-second loop of the time portal that they use to get to their destination time, and this was shown in every single episode. Even as a kid, I grew bored with this. This is like a transformation sequence in a magical girl anime, multiplied by 5. You just skip over it whenever you can. Now, like I said, I really loved the series as a kid. I was up every Saturday morning to see the new episodes. However, this is a prime example of an anime that has not aged well. I doubt that it could even hold a younger audience's attention for the full 39-episode runtime. Now, I do still get a chuckle out of the corny dialogue now and then, and like I said, the characters are very, very likable. But it's extremely difficult for anybody to suspend their disbelief, even for a second, with how many plot holes and inconsistencies there are in the plot. Not to mention, the plot itself never changes from episode to episode, which is an extraordinary detriment in terms of storytelling. So, for curiosity's sake, I will tell you to give this series a look, but I'm going to warn you, don't invest in the entire series unless you're sure that you are going to love every episode of it. With that being said, I'm going to sign off for now. This has been the Geek Gallery. May Gygax be with you. Sayonara. I'll see you next time.
It's astounding. Time is fleeting. Madness takes its toll. But listen closely.
Not for very much longer.
I've got to keep control. I remember doing the time war, drinking those moments when the blackness would hit me and the void would be calling. Let's do the time war again.
Hilly bada hilla, hilly bada hilly bumpa, yally dolly yalla, dolly yalla, dilly dolly dilly dolly dilly dunda.